The unknown fleet. The quantum sensors of the hegemony's border station picked up something impossible. Commander Nexus blinked all three of his eyes, certain the instruments were malfunctioning. The readings showed a massive fleet signature moving through what should have been empty space. Not just any fleet, but thousands of ships arranged in formations he had never seen before. The energy signatures were unlike anything in the hegemony database. Nexus ran the scan again. The results remained the same. His scaled hands trembled as he initiated an emergency transmission to the capital world. This was beyond his authority to handle. The Hegemony Council needed to know immediately. Light years away in the crystalline spires of the Hegemony's ruling chamber, Emperor Kraxon received the message. The massive being, standing 12 feet tall with armor-plated skin that shifted, colors like oil on water, read the report 3 times. His forearms moved independently, each one pulling up different data streams on the holographic displays surrounding his throne. The emergency session began within the hour. Leaders from the 5 dominant species of the hegemony gathered in the council chamber. The air itself seemed to crackle with tension as they reviewed the sensor data. General Vorath of the Canary military spoke first, his voice like grinding metal. The formation patterns were completely unknown to their tactical databases. These ships moved with a coordination that suggested years of joint training, yet they belonged to no registered fleet in the galaxy. Ambassador Talara, a graceful being from the psychic Etherian race, closed her luminous eyes and reached out with her mind. She could sense something at the edge of her perception, a vast intelligence directing the mysterious Armada. But when she tried to probe deeper, she encountered something unexpected. Mental shields of a type she had never encountered before. Whoever commanded that fleet had technology that could block even Etherian telepathy. Emperor Kraxon made his decision. They would send a diplomatic envoy to make contact. If this was a new player in galactic politics, the hegemony needed to establish dominance immediately. If it was an invasion force from beyond known space, they needed intelligence. Ambassador Talara would lead the mission, accompanied by a small but heavily armed escort fleet. The journey to intercept the unknown Armada took 3 standard days. As Talara's ship dropped out of hyperspace at the designated coordinates, she gasped. The mysterious fleet was even larger than the sensors had indicated. Ships of every size and configuration stretched as far as her instruments could detect. Some were sleek and angular, others massive and blocky. They moved in perfect synchronization. Like a school of fish in the cosmic ocean, Talara opened a communication channel on all frequencies. This is Ambassador Talara of the Galactic Hegemony. You have entered territory under our protection. Identify yourselves immediately. The response came quickly, in perfect hegemony standard language. The face that appeared on her screen made her step back in surprise. It was a human. She had seen humans before, of course. They were a minor species from a backwater system, barely space-capable for a century. They had a few colonies and some trading posts, nothing more. Or so everyone believed. The human wore a simple black uniform with no visible rank insignia. He had dark skin, short gray hair, and eyes that held a depth of intelligence that made Talara uneasy. Good afternoon, Ambassador. I am Captain Marcus, Rivera of the Terran Strategic Command. We appreciate your contact. Talara struggled to maintain her diplomatic composure. Captain Rivera, our records show Earth has perhaps 50 vessels capable of interstellar travel, yet I count over 3,000 ships in your formation. Please explain. Rivera smiled, and it was neither threatening nor friendly. It was simply confident. Your records are outdated, Ambassador. Humanity has been busy. The implications hit Talara like a physical blow. The humans had been building a massive fleet in secret. But how? The hegemony monitored all major shipyards, all resource, extraction operations, all military buildups. Nothing of this scale could have been hidden. Unless the humans had found a way to build ships that the hegemony's sensors couldn't properly detect until they wanted to be seen. Captain, surely you understand that such a large military force moving through hegemony space requires authorization. Your species signed the Tributary Accords 40 years ago. Rivera's expression didn't change. We signed those accords under duress, Ambassador. Your empire threatened to destroy Earth if we refused. That agreement is no longer valid. Talara felt ice in her veins. This was a declaration of independence, possibly even war. The hegemony had crushed hundreds of rebellions over the millennia. No single species had ever successfully defied them. But no species had ever assembled a hidden fleet of this magnitude either. She tried to probe Rivera's mind again, searching for weaknesses, fears, anything she could exploit. But she encountered those strange shields again. It was like trying to read a book written in an unknown language. The humans had developed or acquired technology that made them immune to Etherian mental manipulation. Captain Rivera, I must warn you that the hegemony will not tolerate this violation of our authority. Our military forces are without equal in the galaxy. Rivera leaned forward slightly. Ambassador, we know exactly how powerful your military is. We've studied every battle you've fought, every tactic you've employed, every weapon you've developed. We've had 40 years to prepare, and we haven't been preparing alone. Before Talara could respond, space around her ship lit up with new contacts. More ships were dropping out of hyperspace, but these weren't human vessels. She recognized Quellian destroyer configurations, Marxan battle cruisers, even some Vorthon stealth ships. All species that were supposedly loyal members of the hegemony. They were taking positions alongside the human fleet. Rivera continued speaking. Every species you've conquered, every world you've subjugated, every civilization you've forced into servitude, they all remember what freedom felt like. Humanity offered them something your empire never did. A choice. Talara's escort ships moved into defensive positions, but they were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. She opened an emergency channel to Emperor Kraxon. The transmission was brief but would change everything. The humans have united the tributary species. This isn't just Earth's fleet, it's a rebellion. Back in the Hegemony Council chambers, Emperor Kraxon stood slowly from his throne. Around him, his advisors and generals buzzed with panic and anger. The human threat was worse than anyone had imagined. They hadn't just built a fleet. They had built an alliance of species that together controlled a significant portion of the galaxy's resources and strategic positions. General Vorath slammed, his fist on the tactical display. How did we not see this coming? Our intelligence networks span the entire galaxy. The answer came from an unexpected source. Chief Analyst Zarek, usually silent during council meetings, spoke up. We didn't see it because we weren't looking for it. We assumed humans were too primitive, too divided, too weak to pose a threat. We monitored their official channels, their registered ships, their public communications. We never considered they might be using technologies we couldn't detect or meeting in places we didn't monitor. Emperor Kraxon's skin shifted to deep purple, a sign of extreme anger. Prepare the Grand Armada. Every ship, every weapon, every warrior. We will crush this rebellion before it spreads. But even as he gave the order, Kraxon felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Doubt. The humans had planned this for decades. They had united species that had been enemies for generations. They had developed technologies that could counter hegemony advantages. What else had they prepared? The Turning Tide Admiral Catherine Stone stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, the ESV Liberation. Through the vast, transparent aluminum windows, she could see the assembled fleet that represented 40 years of careful planning. Her weathered face showed no emotion, but inside she felt the weight of what was about to begin. Everything humanity had worked for, everything they had sacrificed came down to the next few hours. The communication from Ambassador Talara had gone exactly as predicted. The hegemony's arrogance had blinded them to the possibility that humans could be anything more than another conquered species. Now they knew the truth, but knowledge and understanding were two different things. Her second-in-command, Colonel Chen Wei, approached with a tactical update. Admiral, all coalition forces report ready. The Quellians have their graviton disruptors charged. The Marxans have deployed their shield harmonics. Every species has contributed their best technology to the cause. Stone nodded. For 4 decades, humanity had done more than build ships. They had created a network of trust among the oppressed species of the galaxy. Each secret meeting, each shared technology, each small act of rebellion had led to this moment. The hegemony ruled through fear and division, keeping species isolated and suspicious of each other. Humanity had shown them another way. The tactical display showed the hegemony's Grand Armada, mobilizing from 12 different sectors. Over 5,000 ships, the largest fleet action in recorded galactic history. On paper, they still outnumbered the coalition forces. But wars weren't won on paper. Admiral, incoming transmission from Earth. It's the President. Put it through to my ready room. Stone walked into the smaller chamber adjacent to the bridge. The holographic image of President James Okonkwo appeared, his face calm but his eyes intense. Catherine, the moment we've prepared for has arrived. The choice is yours, but know that Earth stands behind whatever decision you make. Stone understood the weight of his words. They could still back down, return to being a tributary species, hope the hegemony would be merciful. But mercy wasn't in the hegemony's vocabulary. They had destroyed entire civilizations for lesser offenses than this. Mr. President, there's no going back. The galaxy deserves better than eternal servitude. Humanity will light the way. The President smiled sadly. Then may fortune favor the brave, Admiral. The hopes of not just Earth, but 100 worlds go with you. As the transmission ended, Stone returned to the bridge. The hegemony's Grand Armada was approaching faster than expected. Emperor Kraxon himself led them, his personal dreadnought at the center of the formation. It was a ship the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Colonel, Chen reported the latest intelligence. Admiral, our sources inside the hegemony report massive unrest on 17 worlds. The moment we engage, rebellions will begin across the Empire. Stone had always known this battle was about more than ships and weapons. It was about ideas. The idea that freedom was possible. The idea that the strong didn't have the right to dominate the weak. The idea that different species could work together as equals. All ships, this is Admiral Stone. Today, we don't fight for conquest or domination. We fight for the right to choose our own destiny. Every species here has felt the boot of oppression. Today we stand together and say no more. Remember your training, trust your allies, and show the hegemony that unity is stronger than tyranny. The first shots came from the hegemony, as expected. Massive energy beams lanced through space, powerful enough to vaporize asteroids. But the coalition fleet was ready. The Quellian ships activated their graviton disruptors, bending space itself to deflect the beams. The Marxan vessels projected, overlapping shield harmonics, creating defensive barriers that protected entire squadrons. Then the coalition struck back. Human railguns fired projectiles at relativistic speeds, punching through hegemony shields like tissue paper. Vorthon stealth ships appeared behind enemy formations, delivering devastating strikes before vanishing again. Every species contributed their unique advantages, creating a combat symphony that the hegemony's rigid doctrine couldn't counter. Emperor Kraxon watched his tactical display with growing disbelief. His forces were taking heavy losses, but that wasn't what disturbed him most. It was the coordination of the enemy fleet. Different species with different technologies and different combat philosophies were working together seamlessly. The humans had somehow taught them to overcome millennia of mistrust and rivalry. Focus fire on the human flagship, he commanded. Destroy their leadership and the alliance will crumble. But as his dreadnought's main guns targeted the Liberation, something unexpected happened. Ships from every coalition species moved to protect it. Quellian vessels took hits meant for the human ship. Marxan cruisers sacrificed themselves to maintain shield coverage. The message was clear. This alliance wasn't held together by human dominance, but by mutual respect and shared purpose. Admiral Stone observed the battle's flow from her command center. The hegemony was adapting, as expected. Their numerical superiority was beginning to tell. Coalition ships were being destroyed, brave crews sacrificing themselves for the cause. But every minute the battle continued, rebellions were spreading across the hegemony's territory. Admiral, urgent message from the Tarkani system. The population has overwhelmed the hegemony garrison. They're declaring independence. Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The battle here was the spark, but the fire was spreading everywhere. The hegemony couldn't fight a war on 1,000 fronts. Their empire, built on fear, was crumbling as that fear turned to hope. Emperor Kraxon received the same reports. His empire, which had stood for 10,000 years, was disintegrating in hours. The humans hadn't just brought a fleet. They had brought an idea that was more powerful than any weapon. General Vorath approached his emperor. "Sire, we should withdraw. Consolidate our forces in the core systems. We can retake the outer territories later." But Kraxon knew better. There would be no later. Once the idea of freedom took hold, it could never be fully suppressed. The humans had shown the galaxy that the hegemony could be defied. Even if they won this battle, they had already lost the war. The fighting continued for 6 more hours. Ships died by the hundreds on both sides. Heroes were made and lost in the cold vacuum of space. But slowly, inexorably, the tide turned. The coalition's unity proved stronger than the hegemony's might. For every ship they lost, their coordination grew tighter. For every fallen ally, their determination grew stronger. Finally, Emperor Kraxon gave the order he never thought he would utter. All forces, retreat to the core worlds. The age of the hegemony ends today. As the hegemony fleet withdrew, Admiral Stone stood among her exhausted but victorious crew. The coalition had won, but the victory had come at a terrible cost. Thousands had died for this moment of freedom. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten. Colonel Chen approached with casualty reports, but Stone raised her hand. "Not now, Colonel. First, let the galaxy know what happened here. Broadcast on all frequencies, all languages." She stood before the communication console and spoke to a galaxy waiting for news. "This is Admiral Catherine Stone of Earth. Today, the combined free species of the galaxy stood against tyranny and won. The hegemony's rule is broken. But this victory belongs to no single species. It belongs to all who believe that freedom is worth fighting for. The path ahead will be difficult. Building is always harder than destroying. But together, we will create a galaxy where every species can choose their own destiny. The age of empires is over. The age of cooperation has begun." Across 1,000 worlds, beings of every species heard her words. Some cheered, some wept, some simply stood in stunned silence. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had given them more than freedom. They had given them hope. In the depths of space, as the coalition fleet began the long journey home, Captain Marcus Rivera stood beside Admiral Stone. "Did we do the right thing, Admiral?" The cost was so high. Stone looked at the stars, each one representing a system now free to chart its own course. "The cost of freedom is always high, Captain, but the cost of slavery is higher. Today we gave the galaxy a choice. What they do with it is up to them." The human fleet turned toward Earth, but they were no longer alone. Ships from dozens of species flew alongside them, not as subjects or tributaries, but as equals and allies. The Empire had asked whose Armada had challenged them. The answer would echo through history. It belonged to Earth, but more than that, it belonged to everyone who dreamed of freedom.